This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 6th Housing Authority meeting. It's funny, I don't have the agenda. Where did I put the agenda? But well, we always start with a welcome to any guests who are here. Time for community input, and I do not see any guests joining us at this time. Okay. All right. We have a light agenda in items, but probably heavy in work. And that's preparing for the town meeting tomorrow.
Can we do the approval of the minutes first, Jim, just to get that behind us?
Sure. Let's do that. Did everyone have a chance to read?
I'm just finishing reading them right now.
Okay.
Looks good.
Expertly crafted, as always.
Yes.
And I say that for the record.
Comprehensive, exhaustive. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay. I would move to approve the minutes.
Second.
And we have a second. So by voice vote, please, is resuming.
Simmons, aye.
Kane, aye.
Sini, aye. Lovely. It's approved unanimously. Well done, Janet. Thank you. Okay. There it is. Okay. My bad. Okay. So preparations for June 7 town meeting. I'd really like to try to prepare in a way. I know we can't prepare this to the nth degree, right? Because we can't anticipate every question, but I think we can anticipate some, but maybe the best way to start, I'm very open to how you guys want to proceed, but start with, in general, do we introduce the amendment? Do we have a speaker talk about it? We're going to have a handout, Sarah, which was finalized today, but what's from your experience doing town meetings, and I've been to enough myself, but what's the best way to introduce it?
Virginia will do the main intro to begin with, right? As she always does. So, and
that's because we're using
CPA funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And typically, the next thing would be somebody who speaks in favor.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess my recommendation would be Jim as the chair and speak in favor of why, and right. And then they'll ask people if anybody wants to speak against. And then that's how I think the flow would go, Jim.
I think it does too, but does he ask for questions or is it against? Because people may have questions, but not necessarily against. I can't
Isn't there like the for and against and then questions?
Yeah, or somebody may get up to the mic and say, I'm not really against it, but I have a question.
Okay,
Yeah.
but procedurally it goes, here's for and the opportunity for a voice against. Okay. All right, so we have, our handout, but what main points do we want to make? What bullet points? So I'm introducing this, I'm for it, and I'm saying, because of, in my head, I know what I would want to say, that, we're only at, barely 2% of the.
I don't think we're quite to 2%.
Yeah, we're not even quite.
That's a very compelling figure.
Right. So, and not only are we barely at 2%, but we have 0 owner occupied affordable units in town, and this would be the first. So, to me, those are 2 key points, that we're way below the Mass General Law's expectation or under 40B for 10%. And we have 0, owner occupied in town. And this is a first step on a road to improving that.
I think something that I've seen come up at the like 2 town meetings I've been to in my life is that people really like to hear this phrase. This has always convinced me a lot. This is not new money that you're going to be taxed on. This is not like, because they're like, oh, where is this money coming from? This money already exists and can only be spent on housing. I think that you have to drive that point home with like a freaking hatchet, or maybe what's the bigger hatchet? An axe.
An axe.
Like this money
Big
is literally
Thor-like
being
axe.
spent on affordable housing, and
Maybe
we're
like
just,
a guillotine.
yeah.
No,
Yeah, I
that's a
think
really
that's
good point to
Yeah.
head off those questions. Yep. So it's no new money, no new taxes. This money already, the town, I can say, the town, I don't know what year it was, voted for a Community Preservation Act for and this is part of that, that act, that some of those funds in community preservation go to affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are well funded because we haven't had an opportunity yet.
Yes. Yeah. I think you should say that too.
I
Mhm.
forgot to take this little sentence out of there too when I handed it in. I have a message. Document.
Are they
I
going to
need
print that
people
out
to
for
approve
everyone?
my documents, you guys.
No.
So, so I don't know
Well,
if
that's
we're-
all right. Virginia can stand and give hopefully she'll be prepared. We should give her a heads up.
Yeah. I
I've
mean, I
asked
think the
her-
number is actually higher than that. So if anything, it's
I
going to
do
be
too.
good news.
Yeah. Yeah, this was kind of our back and forth document. No, but I didn't, I forgot that was in there.
Yeah. And I did a crappy job of reviewing.
So
Yeah,
the-
I feel like we all dropped the ball on Janet mildly for that. Sorry, Janet. Really shouldered the burden. Thank you.
I
So
did my
we won't
best.
say that Janet submitted this.
Who is I? No. So, and Virginia did get back to me and say, I don't really know for sure. So I don't know that but I think it's closer to 500,000.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think the other key thing is that, once the house is built, that will be a taxable property. It's not like we're removing something off from the tax roll forever,
mhm.
because that's always, I'm surprised Robert didn't catch that one, Jim, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if anyone, I think we should be prepared in case anyone from Concom or whoever that was brings up the idea of the parking lot again, because I don't know if anyone ever circled back to them and was like, yeah, we've been advised not to do that.
I
So-
think, because Virginia, when we met with them, she said, I think we should just take it one step at a time. And I think right now it's best to say, right now we're focusing on step one.
Okay. So probably no one will say anything, but
No, they might.
They might.
if they do, we would say, well, this is the first step. We'll look into that. We won't shut them down completely in front of everyone, because then they might think we are like beefing and they shouldn't.
Yeah, I would just say this is step number one to get it. And, it will depend on the RFP and
That's a good
whether or
answer.
not, the next steps as we saw, I think in MHP's response, Jim, right, for our
Mhm.
cheat stuff.
Yep.
MHP is on a different one. Okay, so,
So that's the materials we'll have with us. But
right.
so I like your answer, Janet, and I'd like to not be the only person speaking, even though I'm the chair. So maybe if they ask that question, Janet, if you're willing to be the one who goes to the microphone and in the very diplomatic way that you just said that, can address that. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, but I think, if there's, I just don't want to make a lot of commotion either,
Right. I think
It's very simple to say, we're not, we were recommended by community preservation that we take this one step at a time.
Yeah, totally. I think that's right. And yeah, I think it's good if we can share the job. So if Jim does the intro, but then Janet takes, if there's any questions that you feel comfortable answering, it just shows that there's yet another person who supports it. So that's good.
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
and that goes for you too, Sierra.
that's it, that way to
yeah.
go.
Although I'm not quite as I don't have Janet has that reassuring, like, I've been around for a while and I know what's up vibe. I don't really have that going for me. So.
No, you're fine. Not
You're fine.
everybody would agree with that statement.
Right.
Probably
I
think
do
I
that.
have an agenda or something, so.
Oh, okay,
Right.
right.
That's true too. That's
For Council on Aging agenda.
a really good point, Janet. You and I, you more than me, but even, I've been around enough that people see me, and for them, it's fingernails down a chalkboard. So someone else new is a good plan. I think ideally we all speak.
Mhm.
But if we're trying to catch a wide net to catch the audience, I think including you, Sierra, is a good idea.
I think maybe we could try to sit near each other so that we can be like, okay, you take this one.
Yes, I think we should. That's a
Okay.
really good point. We should sit
I'll try to find y'all.
close to one another.
You know, we're number 32 out of 33, so.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm recording.
get your toothpicks
We
out
are
to keep
being
your eyes
recorded,
open.
everyone,
Yeah.
so.
Yes.
I'm excited to vote yes on fiber optics as a town resident, not as a housing person.
Right. So yeah, another point. I agree, Sarah, that we should sit together and strategize, be prepared to answer. Janet reminded me that none of us are limited. Questioners are limited. There's only so many times you can ask a question unless there are no objections, but we can answer as many, there's only 3 of us. If there's 30 questions, if we're only allowed to speak twice, we couldn't do it. So.
And we really haven't made a final determination on whether or not a parking lot would be viable.
We haven't.
I think we'd have to have some pre-bidding meetings and,
Right.
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 So no one needs to have a straight answer. And okay.
Right. There was a mixed sense on the on Concom. So they haven't decided, frankly. And so it's not our purview to put that out there.
Yes.
So we're not going to. If someone asks, we'll answer in a very diplomatic but non-committal way, because that's the truth.
we're not yet. Yep.
Yeah. We're not being evasive. Yeah.
Love that question. Now let me tell you how I feel about something else. And what if someone says, I'm just thinking of all the questions people might ask. What if someone's like, well, this is a really bad time for building because everything's so expensive. We can just be like, we're working with nonprofit builders and they're going to take care of that, right? Like, no, we haven't committed to working with nonprofit builders yet.
We're not told. I mean, there will be an RFP process and, there will
It
be.
won't necessarily cost the town money to build affordable housing if we partner with Habitat, right?
Yeah, but I do think that from what we've read, there's probably restrictions on any builder to not make more than a certain percentage of profit when you're building for affordable housing.
Okay.
Right. My understanding is the town is not going to be paying anyone for any building, Habitat or a builder. The builder has to make the property and make it be agreeable that it's, this is the profit they're going to make. And the reason it works, Sierra, and where it would never work in the private sector is because there's no cost for the land.
Okay.
So it's just the building, the structure itself.
So they just go in there and
the septic and
make it profitable.
Right. And it's a very good question, because if building has slowed down, then building has slowed down. And that's out of our control. But when building is hot and heavy, then we can't get to properties fast enough, at least not presently, until we have a housing trust. So we have an opportunity here.
Okay, that's another good point.
If we don't build right away, it won't be the end of the world. We'd rather, the sooner we can build, the sooner we can get someone in there, and the sooner taxes will be paid. That's another point on the bullet point, is that when there's affordable housing on the property, they'll be paying town taxes, right?
Mhm.
Well, I guess there's just what's being paid now is just the value of the land. So it's not the value, the tax money will increase.
Mhm.
Right, because yes, it'll be a house instead of a building lot, so.
Okay.
So the, because it's in the MHP response here, they talked about the parameters you can put on an eligible developer, a nonprofit, for example, but the RFP cannot be prescriptive to, or allow the housing authority to control the project.
Mhm.
That's fair.
Right.
If they're doing it for free, sure.
We can also designate the affordability limit.
Right. Which if we could make it swing, you could also go to 60% AMI or something like that.
Mhm.
But that was probably a stretch, especially for our first effort.
Yeah.
So, but
And it's a lottery run and, I mean, it's, once it's filled, it kind of turns over to somebody like CHAPA, who is a monitoring agency of the state, basically.
mhm. Right. So these are nice bullet points that we're going to have with us
Mhm.
and be prepared to answer. I think it's fair to say, I'm not going to lead with this, but any of us can, in my opinion, say, we're a volunteer group. This is the town's first effort to, be able to get this far. It's a learning process, but lots of towns around us has done this. We have, PVPA, we have different agencies and MHP that we can consult with. So we're not operating blindly, even though we're operating for a first time.
I'm
And
convinced.
at the end of this first bullet where it says, partnering with a developer, all construction would be allowed through Mass General Law, Chapter 190, public construction laws, including prevalent. It would be cleaner to create an RFP for a developer and transfer the land to them.
Yes.
So that's.
It sounds like a pretty strong recommendation there. And I think we should endorse that, especially since, we're not a municipal housing authority with staff and et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, the other thing, Cindy, I think had asked a question, what if they want to expand their house,
Mhm.
And I think
They
it
want
has
to put an
again,
addition on or something.
yeah, it needs to be monitored again by by somebody like CHAPA that
Mhm.
regulates all of that. And if they start making more money than affordable, we can't kick them out of a house they own. Good for them. And chances are they'll want to go to a bigger, better house, but the house remains as deed restricted. So
I was gonna say that it's a good question, but I imagine the deed restriction forbids that kind of thing. You can't put an addition on a deed restricted affordable home.
and it's, again, we don't monitor that. Somebody like CHAPA would monitor that.
Maybe there's some kind of just rule that they could make an addition if it doesn't increase the value beyond a certain threshold or something like that. But I'm sure, yeah, like they wouldn't be us that they're coming to ask that question. They'll figure that out amongst their.
So I'm not, but who's comfortable speaking about what is CHAPA and what do they do and what's their role?
Well, I mean, they've been mentioned many times over. I was going to ask you all that same question. So, but I know
Want to Google it?
I did look them up and it did talk about the fact that they are a monitoring agency. Citizens Housing, hold on. Where'd it go?
Are they HUD or are they the state?
No, I think they're a state monitoring source. It just came up. Hold on, let me see. I'm starting to see what it stood for.
It looks like budget priorities, legislative priorities. It looks like they're a nonprofit that's like government adjacent. About.
I'm trying to remember what CHAPA stands for.
Citizens Housing
and Planning Association. They're just to encourage the production and preservation of housing, affordable. So they're like a housing authority like us, but they are a statewide organization. But I don't think they are part of this. I don't think they're part of the government. I think they just.
I think they're designated as a monitoring agent for the government.
Not
the-
DHCD?
I think DHCD actually works with them.
They're a
To,
nonprofit umbrella organization. Work collaboratively with other fields. On the federal level, CHAPA works with national partners to affect policy. Yeah, okay.
So it's still not clear to me whether it's CHAPA or CHAPA's contracted through DHCD to do this work. So that's a little homework we can look at.
Mhm.
they helped create the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Law.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it sounds like they're an advocacy group, but
I
usually an
do-
advocacy group is not a monitoring group.
No, but they've been described as a monitoring group.
Really?
Advocating for
Okay.
opportunity.
Committee is Production and Preservation Committee. Maybe it's one of their committees. Let's see.
Who would be a good person to answer this question definitively? Maybe the folks at MHP or?
I bet they would know.
Because CHAPA runs programs that connect people with affordable rental and home ownership opportunities. So, if somebody's looking for an affordable house, they would reach out to CHAPA, including the Massachusetts Accessible Housing Registry, the Massachusetts Home Ownership Collaborative, and Chapter 40B monitoring.
Here we go. Chapter 40B monitoring. As the monitoring agent for 152 home ownership and 19 rental Chapter 40B developments across Mass, CHAPA ensures these affordable homes stay affordable and in the hands of people who need them. So
How
yeah,
many?
there they are.
152, that's it?
152 plus 19, 152 home ownership and 19 rental developments. Developments,
So-
not units.
They may not cover everything.
No, they don't. I think that's just one of the people who do that.
Right. So we're piecing it together here, but we are guessing, but it sounds to me like they probably do contract with DHCD to be monitoring in a certain region. Maybe. Because there's got to be more than 152 homeowner occupied affordable
Yes.
units in the state of Massachusetts.
Mhm.
It's actually- I don't see that they.
Where did we get the information that CHAPA would be monitoring this property?
That, I didn't say this property per se, but I think I said like a CHAPA,
Okay.
the organizations that monitor.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. We know that any property that's in comes under, with a deed restriction as affordable under 40B is monitored by an agency, an outside agency, not the town.
Mhm.
Okay. The agency is less important as
Mhm.
that's part of the provision of
Right,
a
right.
deed restriction.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the answer. Okay. We don't want to overcomplicate this.
No, that was just more for our kind of information.
Yeah. I'm sorry I went down that rabbit hole, but once, I just wanted to confirm because
Mhm.
we're not going to be able to anticipate every question, but I'd rather have the discussion here than the three of us having this discussion during town meeting and not knowing, or the
Oh,
appearance
absolutely.
that we don't know.
As an example, Neighbor Work Housing Solutions is another 40B monitoring agency.
Okay. So there it is. Yeah. They must, as part of, their charter, as part of how they build their business model, they get funds, probably through DHCD, to
Yeah.
do this monitoring.
I mean, again, they helped to create Chapter 40B. So, they're.
Mhm.
So,
All right, so
have to
I
get
suggest we
into-
don't use the term CHAPA unless someone says, well,
Right.
who are these agencies? What do you mean agencies? And you say, well, for example, CHAPA's one. And Sierra, if you can write down and remember that other one you just mentioned, then people in the know or kind of know a little bit about housing say, oh, okay.
Mhm.
But again, the important thing is it's monitored. It's not the town doing the monitoring. It's not the town making those decisions. This is all part of Massachusetts law. Good. I heard from a pretty reliable source that there might be some citizens who are concerned about water on this property, that there's been claimed evidence of standing water on this property. So the perk issue is going to become an issue. Could be. So if that's the case, again, we know it's been perked in 2009. If it needs to be perked again to be sold, that makes it no different than any other property that's being sold.
I know it does have a high water table for sure.
Right. And if it doesn't perk, we're not buying it. I mean, that's the answer. We're not going to buy it until it perks.
But I mean, so it may be limited to not have a basement, for example, because it does have a high water table.
Right. Could be on a slab. Yeah.
Right. So, and
Yeah.
I kind of spoke to Habitat when I met with them about that. And they didn't seem to think, there was
No,
an
I
issue.
imagine sometimes Habitat builds houses on a slab anyway, just for the affordability piece. Digging a cellar hole and pouring concrete is an expense.
And it was, again, perked pretty far up towards the road,
Towards the road or away from the road?
towards the road. The perk
Towards
is in the front of the lot.
Okay.
So the house would have to be built closer to the road.
Well, actually, no, the leach field, right, would have to be closer to the road, because that's, you don't want to build the house right on top of the leach field. So,
No,
the greater distance to the leach field, obviously, the more expensive the septic becomes. But you don't want your leach field right next to the house. So the perk test, and I'm not a builder, but my understanding, the perk test is all about the septic. It's not necessary. I mean, you don't want to even put a slab on a very wet, you're going to have to build it. But as I recollect from walking the property, it slopes up from the road pretty consistently. So I don't know, it's all about where the water flow is, but you want to put the house higher than the water, right? So the higher you go, the better.
I'm just, when I talked to Habitat, they were very much leaning towards the right-hand side of the property and not very far back.
Yeah. And that's, they're the experts.
Yeah, so.
It's actually a decent sized lot.
Yeah. I think when they walked it out also, it was, towards the right-hand side because there's a lot of trees on the left-hand side. So they want to avoid getting into that, removing the expense of removing a lot of trees and.
Just the environmental impact of removing a lot of trees. As I recollect, and the picture shows it, there's plenty of open land. So if you can put the house there, why would you cut trees down? And the neighbors are not right on the border, so there's no reason to worry about sufficient space between.
Yeah, and I'll bring that perk test with me tomorrow. We have 31 articles to go through. We can memorize the perk test by then.
Right. One question we're not going to be able to answer is the whole curb cutout. Because I did email Randall. He has, it's hard to reach someone at Mass Dot, but it's hard for me to imagine that the state's going to say, I'm sorry, it's a state highway and you can't put a driveway here. I mean, because all the other houses on College Highway there, I mean, there's driveways. So it would be inconsistent, and I don't understand it, why they might say, there's no culvert needed because
They already have an entrance there, so.
Right, there's already an entrance there. It's just not, it's a mound, like dirt entrance, but there's no actual curb cutout. Of course, the way the curb is there, it's not really a curb. You can readily drive over it. I did.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a curb, but it's got a very, very slight slope. It's not your standard. I'm sure there's an engineering term for the typical asphalt curb. This is not. I don't see that as a barrier. And that's something that we could try to get an answer for, before we buy the property also, just to confirm, just like the septic, just like the perk test.
Yeah, that says in the very front left-hand side is an easement, and then there's the drainage on the other side of the property line, but
Mhm.
no.
I think there's going to be questions, why is this property still for sale? If it's such a good piece of land, why hasn't someone bought it and developed it?
We don't have an answer for that, do
We
we?
can only speculate that I'm not seeing by the naked eye a lot of building. When I look at the weekly real estate property transfers in the paper, it's a pretty small list. And I think to your point, Sarah, it's the cost of materials is an issue. These things ebb and flow. It's not going to be that way forever. There's certainly a demand to build in Southampton in general. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, we're not experts on building. I don't know that
Right.
we don't know why it hasn't really sold yet.
Right.
It's on a highway. There's probably many reasons, but we can guess, but
It's probably cost of materials.
But we still have a
Okay.
chance to back out of the sale if it gets appraised and we find out there's something terribly wrong, right?
Yes.
So I think that
What
will
we're
be,
getting is permission to buy, right? But we
Yeah.
haven't, we're not going to buy the property if it doesn't perk.
Mhm.
well, and honestly, according
It
to,
has to perk.
I've spoke to somebody from the assessor's office who's also a realtor who says you don't need to perk it again.
Okay, well, someone I spoke to earlier thought contrary, so that's just something we'll say. The realtor said you don't need to. I don't
And
know
so
what.
and someone from the assessor's office as well. I mean, I looked
Right.
it up online. It doesn't look like, I'm trying to remember what, it doesn't look like you have to perk it again after a certain year. And 2009 is grandfathered into that, is that there's no need to perk it again.
Okay, so this person believed that they had to be perked every 2 years until it's sold and built, but I don't understand that because a perk test is a perk test.
No, not according to,
All right, well, that's good testimony. We'll have
I mean,
to-
I can also, I would be happy to ask anybody if to confirm that, is there anybody here that's a realtor or that's from the assessor's office that could speak to that? Because
Right.
we have a different understanding.
Yeah.
Because I did look it up afterwards and I did find something that said that once they passed perk, after that, 2009 falls into that area. There was a time prior to that, what you were told was correct, but the law has changed. So,
Right, and it makes sense. Maybe, the standards for perk tests has reached a certain point starting in whatever year, Janet. And so you do a perk test and it's a perk test.
right.
The geology doesn't change that drastically.
I think when they started doing like 3 deep holes or something, that
Yeah.
multiple, I think that the law changed at that point in time, but maybe
Yeah.
somebody could speak to that. Because we're not the expert in those areas.
Right. It's become apparently a more vigorous test.
Right.
Yeah. Good questions. What else can you imagine folks may ask about?
I mean, if we choose to do that, we can always do that, but
Right. But it may be, if it hadn't been, if it required a perk test to sell as buildable, it would be on the seller, not on the town or the housing authority or the purchaser. That's my recollection. When you buy a property, it either comes as here's the perk test, here's the Title V or whatever. No, that Title V is after the septic is built. Here's the perk test. And that gives this buyer knowledge that this is a buildable lot. Otherwise, lots are sold, quote, as is.
So
And
this is already
you
done.
roll the
So-
dice.
So there's no, I mean, if we choose to do it ourselves just for our own, knowledge, then that would be on us.
Right.
Since it
Right.
doesn't, required, because it's not required.
Right. And I wouldn't even mention that, because why would we do that if we don't have to? If we have a valid perk test and it's
Well,
valid,
that's my
there's no
point. Yep,
reason.
yep,
Yeah. It'd be throwing money away.
yep. So yes, when you mentioned that earlier, I wanted to dig into that a little bit with somebody that was in that field, not somebody that was outside of that field, so.
Right. Being this 32nd of 33 articles, I hope somebody's still there. You know, if we have a question, that will be willing to answer that.
I hope we have a quorum by that time.
Well, that's another thing. If people drift away, I don't know, I forget the number we need for a quorum, but that will be extremely disappointing.
Mhm.
It's 50.
Okay.
Let's hope those first 31 articles are nice and snappy.
That would be the budget too, you know, so.
So
Oh
probably not.
no, that's not snappy at all.
Not. Okay.
Okay.
Have we exhausted this topic? Can you think of any other questions that might be asked of us?
I mean, I saw, you know, there's always people that, you know, are concerned. If I'm trying to remember where I saw something, there was, and I don't know if it was in MHP or somebody, if you know, people get affordable housing and they get a little nervous. And so, you know, so there's, somebody said would decrease the value of the real estate, but there's been studies that have shown that it's just the opposite, that over the last X number of years, that it's actually increased, that has not decreased market value. So I don't know if I can find
One house, not like, you know, a big development. It's one house, and I don't think there's even any neighbors very close to it.
Except the one right next door.
Yeah,
So.
there's one abutting neighbor. And so,
Yeah,
I
mean,
mean,
those questions should be asked. And so I think we can be prepared to answer best we can. If, you know, if we can't cite the studies, maybe we shouldn't mention them.
did we have talked to the abutter already, or not yet, or not until we're looking into RFPing and stuff?
Yeah, I think until we have an offer, you know, when we making an offer or there's an RFP going out, then there may be some opportunity there. And I mean, it's assessed at 77.5, I think, and it's listed at 109.5. At least it was last time we looked. So, I mean, assessed value and appraised value, as we all know, are two very different numbers. So,
yep,
in all of our homes or whatever. So,
the market bears what it will bear.
But I do have, I will print out 3 copies of this, which is the maps from the assessors. It's not a map, but it's the information from the assessors that gives the appraised value at 77,000, or assessed value at 77,000, and kind of gives you the history, which drives the property cards, but the property cards are not updated as often as the information in the Vision software. So this is from Vision, which is what is used in the assessor's office. So
I see. Right. And to your point, even assessed value is often not, I'll be careful with my words here. In my limited experience of that, living that directly, the assessed value that a town uses doesn't, in my experience, often correlate with the market value. And assessed values can be manipulated by the town. They go out. I think that's happening in town now. We had a letter, right, that there will be people out assessing, reassess the homes, but then they adjust the tax rate. You know, so this is town finances assessing versus what a property is worth. And you know, most people I think realize that, but we can address it if we need to. I also think that, you know, as far as notifying the abutters, I mean, I bought my house and there was a field next door. Somebody bought the field and put a house there. No one talked to me. You know, it's a buildable lot.
Yep.
That's how it works, you know.
Good. Okay. Anything else? I'm not sure I captured everything, but hopefully we're in good shape. I
Yeah,
think we're in good shape. Yeah. I mean, if there's a lot of other questions, I mean, we'll do the best we can to answer, address as many of the issues as we can.
hmm right. Okay, next on the agenda is preparation for the June 16 MHP education event. Shifting
So-
gears.
Now is about the time when we should start sending out publicity and such, right? It's a good time to do so. I've been waiting because I didn't want to have fatigue from people early on, but I have
thought
a
after the
order
town,
of who to share it with and everything.
yeah, I think after I've been kind of waiting for the town meeting because there's so much information
Okay. So
being
after,
absorbed. So I think after tomorrow, that's just my personal opinion.
Agreed. Agreed.
good point.
You know, people are on overload before the
So,
meeting. So,
Right. One of the things, Janet, you asked me to do, and I'm willing to do it, is the select board meets at 6 tomorrow at the library in the school, correct? And you asked me to go to that and promote this with all the various committees.
I think that it's probably not going to be broadcasted because it's in the school, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but
And
I
Joy
don't
has been, I mean, if there was another select board meeting in between, I don't know that this is, you know, it's up to you, Jim, if you want to go, but just as a reminder that the 16th is that they probably have, I don't know if they're, you know, Joy's been doing a nice job, I think, promoting it and
Okay.
explaining it. But we are targeting certain, you know, like the planning committee, the community preservation committee, make
Yep.
sure we get emails and flyers out to them and encourage them strongly to attend. Council on Aging, Finance Committee.
It looks like there's not any more select board meetings before the 16th.
Yeah, probably not. So, but again, Joy has messaged, I think we just need to reach out to those other committees and, I mean, we can do that as individuals. I
right.
don't know which is better for it to come from Jim or to come from, I mean, Sarah's on the community preservation, so it's good for her. And I'll do the COA. I don't know if you want to do the planning board, Jim.
I can do the
and-
planning board. I can email those folks.
And we have the
Yeah, that might
flyer.
be a better approach. If Joy's already doing that, what is me showing up?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're probably gonna be so busy talking about other stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is it really worth your time to spend like 2 seconds of that meeting annoying
Yeah, I
them?
Had there been another one, I would have encouraged it, but I think since this is probably not the right.
Let's just
Right.
aggressively email them that week.
Yeah, so I'll email Paul and actually
Do you have the flyer, Jim? I think.
I
you
do.
Received
I
the
do.
flyer, right? So if
Yeah.
we
It's
can do
awesome
that-
that the announcement is up on the website, right under the
Yes,
town meeting.
it is.
Everyone's gonna be looking at the website right now, like I was, to see what time the meeting starts. And they're gonna see that. So that's pretty sweet.
There.
In fact,
So
I
do the
I could
Facebook.
email Paul and the rest of the planning board members if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And I think we should all do that, broadcast it rather than just the chair.
Oh, we
I
have
I always
our,
send it to Kate, who's on the Board of Health, and she always sends it to her people, you know, the few various people, Dan LaValle, who think he's
Right.
your planning
He's
board.
on the planning board, and Cindy and
so we
Sarah.
really need to encourage them to attend. Because
Mhm.
this is not, you know, this is not the housing authority.
Yep.
Future. This is to, you know, be educated on that. So add in the select board and planning. I'll do the council on aging. And I can do Barbara Golden I can do the library trustees as well.
Okay,
And finance committee, I know Joy was working with them. Unfortunately, they met last week, Thursday, I think, and she was,
do they have enough members now?
yes.
Yay.
Anyone on the finance committee also on community preservation?
Not that I know of. Do they have a representative from finance on community president? They usually do, right?
Let me see if I can find that out.
I think it's Vicky, it's Donna, I think it's Becky Plimpton, Barbara Zimborski. I can try to get as many of their emails as I can. They met on Thursday. I couldn't make it. It was kind of late notice. I could have reached out to Sierra and said, what are you doing tonight? You've never met these people, but so I think we can just approach them.
Okay, it's Barbara Szymborski, who's the finance committee rep on the preservation.
Okay.
I don't feel like I've seen her at many
Okay.
meetings.
All right, I don't know when Joy is back and whether, so we can, starting Wednesday, we can bombard the committees and the committee members and with the flyer and strongly encourage them to come and,
Yes, not before Wednesday. Agreed.
yeah. And then Sarah's gonna do Facebook again, right?
Yep, we'll do Facebook.
Does anybody have a color printer that's working? Mine's not working, so,
No, mind bafflingly
yeah.
has color ink, says that it's printing in color, have tried literally everything, will not print in color no matter what.
So last check, mine is, but not to make like 100 copies. What are we looking for?
Well, we're talking about some in town hall, maybe 10.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and then.
Where do you want them placed?
Well, I mean, I can come grab some from you, Jim, so, I
Okay.
mean, like.
Or
if
I
the
can bring
library-
them. I can bring them tomorrow night.
Okay,
Yeah. Sure.
if you want to do that, yeah. We'll go to the
Yeah.
library, we'll go to town hall and their bulletin boards, we'll go to the council on aging. I don't know if there's one in the, we'll get. I'm trying to think, the library, so some of those quick places,
Should we ask the usual Facebook folks, Tammy Walunas and Randall Kemp?
Well, I think Tammy, Sierra just posts, right? You don't have to go.
Yeah,
to
you can I can just post in there, but
Perfect.
I could like tag them to get them to share it with their friends or something, because they
Yeah.
might have people who aren't even in that group, or the algorithm, like the more people post it and comment it, the better it is. So I can try to enlist their help to publicize it in Facebook.
And maybe if you want to get to Randall, Jim.
Mhm.
Do you mind that? Okay.
I do
And
not.
I'll get to Robert Floyd after tomorrow for his newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't
The,
know.
I was gonna say the marquees are a little more work than that might be worth. I don't know.
They're a lot of work. They're a lot of work.
I know there's so many other events going on, and like getting the message across, especially when it's something online that you like tell people how to access, getting that across on a board is very difficult. So
Well, the interesting thing about the marquees too is they're a lot of work. I would do it if I felt I think people pay attention. I remember Cindy and I doing for the survey, the one across from the old Opa, and she was pretty, because she went, did you see it? What is this? What people drive by it it's there's a lot of visibility there, but I think because it's always there, people don't pay attention. They just.
I mean, I think the one in the corner on Primary Meadow, as you turn, it's kind of like smacks you in the face, but
It
it's.
does.
but it
But
depends
people
where
don't
you
read
work,
it.
'cause some people don't even go that direction. Some people like
That's
different sides
true.
of town.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Maybe they're
one
too busy
segment.
texting while driving to look up at the board.
Don't
I'm
do
not
that.
saying no. We just don't have any data to say that they get a lot of response. We have some subjective data from when Cindy and I were doing this, and it wasn't good. It's like
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the name of the community meeting is, Affordable Housing 101 and listening session. Now I've got to remember. I'm having a feeling.
I don't have the handout in front of me.
Yeah, Affordable Housing Trust 101
Okay, right.
and listening
Affordable
session.
Housing
But I
Trust.
think,
Listening session.
we should add our own flair of convincing personal language of why we want people to come. So it seems like a personal ask rather than a.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
You have anything you want to share?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I'm just be like, hey guys, this is really important to me. We're really excited about this. Get a little emotion in there. Be like, this is a huge step for us. Like, this is moving in the direction. Like, please come support us if you love me. And then they're like, oh, I did this for Sierra, even if I'm not interested for myself. That's how other people get me to come to things. That's how I ended up on this committee. So
It works. See,
it does work.
so let me ask you folks: is this, if we start getting questions about tomorrow night at town meeting about how does affordable housing work, is it fair to promote this tomorrow night?
Jim, I think that Robert will tell you that's not on the agenda. He'll probably cut you off.
Robert, so funny.
Well,
It's just you can try it, Jim, but he may,
yeah. Yes, I can.
I'm just picturing his reaction to any perceived PR promotion question answer.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not a promotion if people are asking questions. That's one
If
place
someone
where they can get
said,
answers.
Where can I learn more about this? Maybe we should plant someone in the audience to ask that
Mhm.
question. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's all how we answer it too. You know, we could say, well, that's a good question. You know, people can get additional information.
Mhm.
And if he says that's not allowed, like, okay, I guess I can't tell you where we can get additional information.
Withdrawn. But you already heard it. So.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and the timing for this particular piece of property and town meeting, it just makes it a possibility where in the past and I don't know if you want to, if it's worth commenting on that, in the past, they've attempted to buy properties, but
I think if people ask why it's taken so long, that's the answer.
Mhm.
That, until we get a housing trust created that will facilitate this,
Which, by the way, you could learn about on the 16th.
Mass law requires that it be approved through town meeting.
Mhm.
And
Right.
that's always been, because we don't meet every week as a town meeting. We meet once a year or twice a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Any other additional June 16 preparation thoughts,
Ooh, there is one
suggestions?
thing. There was one thing. They wanted to know, they said there needs to be, one of us needs to be the facilitator. And there's two facilitator duties. There's like welcoming everyone at the beginning, and then there's fielding questions at the end. And so we wanted to ask Jim, are you available? And will you be attending that day? And do you want to do some or all of the facilitation duties?
Especially the kickoff, Jim.
Yeah. So I do plan to attend. I have it on my calendar. It's in the evening, so it's not during work hours. So yes, I will. I'm happy to share that, but if we have no volunteers, I will do it.
I think we all voted for you, Jim.
Yeah, that's the, it's always heartwarming to know that people vote for you when you're not present. I like it.
Volunteer you for things.
Yeah, I've been voluntold before. I get that a lot at work. So
Yeah, I think we talked about it with Shelley, and she said that because, as the chair and sort of the longest face of the, housing authority to date, then it would probably be.
Well, it's a very long face. I'll say that. So that is fine.
This face of the housing.
This is a beat down face right here.
No.
No
Sure.
way.
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. And you have the time that it's at, right? It's at 6:30.
6:30.
Okay.
And I'll try to get a little early just so we can. I'll do my best. I'm not the best facilitator, but I'm fair probably. So it's not like I have never done it. So
Yeah, and it's not like you have to be the one who has the answers to the questions, but if you're just the one who's like, and now it's question time. Who would like?
Right. Sometimes being the facilitator is easier because. So, in fairness, though, I'm going to facilitate this. There's already a published agenda. It's kind of like facilitating this meeting or chairing this.
Well, no, Shelley's going to you'll do the intro.
I'll introduce her, and then she's going to run with it.
And us, and then then she'll take over the presentation, and then
I can ask for
She'll
questions.
probably end up being the one to answer a lot of the questions.
Yeah.
But it'll still be nice for for it to seem like it's coming from the top of Southampton.
Right. There needs to be somebody to start it off, and just to make sure everyone remains an adult. So.
Okay.
No worries. Okay, thank you,
Thank
Sierra,
you.
for that little prompt. Okay, last call for June 16 item discussions. June 16 preparation item discussions.
I think I'm
Okay, looks like we're good. Something that's not on the agenda, but I would like to do in this meeting, if it's all right with you folks, is I worked from home today, which is rare, as I went down to town hall to get some stuff done, right, Janet? But I checked the mail while I was there, and there is some mail, and I'd like to share this publicly. One is from the United States Department of Commerce, U.S. Census Bureau, that demands that we have not received your 2022 Census of Government Survey of Public Employment and Payroll. That's not true. I did respond to the census, but it's not going to be legible, right?
That's not low. We can't read.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a way for you to like
Yes,
check in on it?
there's instructions, register or sign in, blah, blah, blah. And if you guys are good with that, to trust me to do that, I will do that. If you want to see this notice or talk more about it, unfortunately, I just picked it up today, so it's not something I can share with you necessarily, other than I'm supposed to do this as chair. And I did.
I absolutely trust you. If you need help, I can help, but I have no lack of trust for your integrity and filling out.
What I think this assumes is this is like a municipal housing authority that has staff and has,
Right.
Section 8 vouchers and et cetera, maintains properties. None of that applies here.
Mhm.
Right. So it's just like, yep, hello, none of us get paid. Goodbye.
Yes. Yes, we are an unpaid but dedicated staff. Okay, so we're good with that. No objections. Second one is from Massachusetts DHCD. Process of updating our Chapter 40B subsidized or shy housing inventory, the SHI. So there's a website, a link, which of course they send it in paper, so I can't click on the papers. I have to type all this in, but there's a website to go and apparently update. There are no updates. We don't have any additional housing units. We have what we've always had.
Can I ask a question though? Because in my kind of research over the last couple of weeks, I believe I read that when there's a group home, it's you don't count it as one, you count it based on a number of beds in the group home. So I don't know that we've ever done that, because if we have 40 units or whatever in the senior and disabled housing rental, then we have, 3 or 4 group homes, but I don't know how many beds are in each group home. So I think it's per bed because we're providing housing to those individuals. So I don't know how we find a little bit more about that, but it may raise us up to, we may make over 50 soon. I was surprised by that. I thought it was per group home, and this said it's per bed in a group home.
So that's news to me, although I thought we always did kind of, because I thought there were only 36 units like at Southampton Meadows and the other 8 were at these group homes. No?
I thought there were 40 units, but I could be wrong.
We don't know. So good point. So where did you get this information about group homes? Where can I research that?
I'd have to go back and do another search. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of research over the last couple of weeks, and
that's okay. If it's not readily available, there's a lot of data on this letter from Mass DHCD, which includes places to ask questions. And so these group homes, I assume, are registered. So
yes, yeah.
I would think DHCD would know how many beds there are there, but that's a question. You're right, though. Maybe that's been an oversight that we're not getting credit for all the affordable units we have. Right, because why would you count a group home? You don't count a one apartment unit, right? You have
Right,
to count the
that's-
number of people housed.
I mean, it makes sense. I just never thought of it
Yeah.
like that, you know?
Or actually though, maybe I take it back. I can see what can go both ways, because when you have an apartment, right, you count the unit, you don't count whether it's a 2, 3, or 4 bedroom apartment. I don't believe. You just have so many units.
Well, it's still one
So-
building is, you know,
So a group home might be counted as just one.
that's not what I read though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, so it's worth pursuing clarification,
Yeah.
which I will through these links and emails that are offered.
And if I can find it again,
Yeah, send it to
Um,
me.
yeah. I'm just trying to see if I can come up with, I forget what the name of the home is there, the senior disabled homes. Does anybody remember off the top of your head?
I'm looking up some definitions here though.
You should know better than to ask me for recall, Janet.
Oh, Jim. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look it up because I wanted to check and see. Who is it? I'm not even remember who's in charge of it. What's the HUD company in charge of it?
DHCD,
No, it's a HUD, it's a federal.
Section
They're out
8.
of Springfield. No, they're out of Springfield, the company that runs it.
Oh, Wayfinders.
Wayfinders, yes, thank you.
Yeah, they're contracted through HUD, yes, or HUD contracts them. Yeah.
I mean, I can look it up. I was just
hmm
need to.
Well, I'll
take
start this process tonight.
it. Okay,
I'll be clicking on these links and seeing what I can learn. But I won't.
yeah, it's a 40-unit senior housing property. So there are 40 units there.
40. Okay.
So, and I
But
think,
it's not exclusively senior, or is it?
but this is under, this says, I think it's and disabled.
Yeah.
This just happened to say, when I was looking, it said senior, oh, Southampton Meadows, that's it, yes.
Mhm.
A 40-unit senior housing property, but it is senior and. So that's 40 units, so there's more than 4 beds left. I mean, we may have just 4
We have 4 group
group
homes.
homes, yeah.
Right.
So I don't know, I just want us to make sure we're reporting it correctly.
Yeah, I can see that coin being flipped either way. There's bedrooms, there's beds, you're right, but each of those 40 units, some may have 2, some may have 3 bedrooms. We don't count.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, I'm referring specifically to group homes, yeah.
Yep, maybe they classify it differently and we should take credit. Agreed.
Okay,
All right, that's what I have for the mailbag. We did receive other mail, just full disclosure, but it's all from these property management companies that want to come maintain the properties and mow the lawns of the various and sundry properties that we own as a housing authority, which are 0. So it's very nice of them, the Hans of Athol, and others to offer their services, Saybrook Management and Sharon. But I just throw those out. I recycle them because we have nothing. And that's the mailbag. It's fun doing
All right.
mailbag. Okay. That is the last item on our agenda item, other than the usual, which is, of course, schedule our next meeting.
So I know when we talked about moving our meetings to the second Monday of the month.
Yes, and that will work better for Joy, right?
Yes, because she's.
yes.
The first Monday of the month is Independence Day.
Yes, and
That too.
Concom probably won't meet that day. It'll probably be a conflict this time, but.
Right.
July 11th. And I think,
Do we do it July 11th, knowing that it'll be a conflict, or?
I don't know if it's going to be a conflict.
You're right. We can't assume.
And I
Well,
think,
why don't, go ahead.
I think we have to meet in person starting in July.
Yeah. Is it required, or is it, I thought it was still a choice.
I spoke with Ed and I got the impression from him, and we can clarify that starting in July, there's no more Zoom meetings.
Mhm.
Let's
Okay.
see. Conservation Commission is meeting July 11th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. Does that we can't meet on Zoom?
We need clarification.
Yeah, because I
There-
thought it was extended to be a choice, but regardless.
Yeah, I'm just going by what Ed was
Yeah, he's a
mentioning, but
pretty reliable source.
unless he was just busting my chops.
Well, you know what? We can agree to meet on July 11th at 6 p.m. and, location TBD, right? Venue to be.
Found it. Extension until July 15th. So
Oh, okay, so we got
11th,
one more in.
before.
One more in. Okay, good.
So if we meet on the 11th, you get it in. All right. So why don't we,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully Joy can attend, but if not, we have the second Monday in August.
Okay. Hopefully she can come to part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. July 11th at 6 p.m. is our next meeting on Zoom.
Zoom, okay. Good. Thanks,
Good.
Sarah, for checking that out.
Yes.
Quick on the Googling skills uptake there.
Yes.
Yes.
Fired up.
Can you find out
Fire
about
coming from
can
those
you find
fingers.
out about the group homes while you're at it? then?
I actually looked and I found a document that mentioned them, but nothing that answered the
Yeah,
question.
I don't know what I was looking at through so much stuff that
Yeah.
but we'll find the answer to that out.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'd
So
like- Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is there anything else, or do I have a motion to adjourn now that
We
we
have a
said?
motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay, by voice vote. All in favor?
Simmons, aye.
Kane, I.
Seenie, aye. That one's usually unanimous.
7-11. It is.
Well done.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.